Chapter 1. First Contact Captain's Log, Expedition Epsilon, 112-9. I sat in my captain's chair, a furry claw gently scraping away impatiently at the leather armrest as the lights in front of us whizzed by. The subspace bubble was holding strong, and we had managed to, by no small miracle, to find a hyperlane into the dead zone. Our expedition was working on other projects, but we have abandoned them in favor of this endeavor, the hyperlane marked, signatures recorded, and we were well on our way to seeing what exactly was going on. "Captain!" my pilot spoke up, her marble blue eyes looking up at my grizzled, white-haired form. "Report!" I commanded and sat up straight. "Subspace bubble collapse in 60 seconds. We are approaching a star system. All systems stable." "Very good, pilot. I understand everyone was apprehensive about this, but this was the only hyperlane we have ever found into the dead zone. We cannot risk missing this chance." I encouraged my crew, trying my best to keep everyone calm and reassure. We were explorers. Our job was to explore the universe, so this was nothing unusual. The dead zone was in essence a small part of the galaxy populated very sparsely by star clusters and nebulous formations. Nobody until this point had ever seen this place due to how absurdly hard it was to find a stable hyperlane into the cluster. We had been in the bubble for 2 whole hours by this point, enough to cross several hundred light years. 3, 2, 1, collapse! With practiced and expert precision, pilot Jen Issa broke the bubble, and we catapulted into the outer edges of a star system with a blue star and 3 planets. Point defense cannons whirred to life and vaporized debris and meteoroids that got through our shields. "All right, begin scans. Let's start with that gas giant right in front of us. Any broad spectrum of the star system?" "Already calibrating data, Captain. Spectrum counts. 1 star, spectral class blue. Medium size, 2 gas giants, 1 failed star, 2 terrestrials, and 1 asteroid belt with multiple large planetoids." My ensign Carthon responded, "Excellent work, let's get started. Captain Demes, get the good stuff ready. This is going to be a long day." I got an aye from the crew, followed by excited laughter. The next 4 days were spent cataloging, scanning, using drones to collect samples, and comparing notes. We were so busy with this process, we failed to notice we were not alone until it had us in its jaws. I remember I was flirting with Jen Issa, young, vibrant, beautiful, golden-haired pilot of my ship, euphemistically explaining why early ships had cockpits and not bridges when we were rocked by an unknown gravity field. We were harshly thrown about in the cabin and quickly rose to our feet, staggering about as we made our way back to our station at full alert. "Report!" I commanded, putting on my seatbelt. "Unknown gravity field, we're moving. Ship engines not responding." Ensign Carthon frantically typed at his controls as our engines somehow went dark. "We're blind. All sensors are malfunctioning," pilot Jen Issa said, struggling to keep control of her ship. A wave of light photons swarmed us repeatedly, causing our systems to short and spark, with one of our cannon turrets mounted just underneath the front viewing port, going haywire and spinning around aimlessly. "Weapons malfunctioning." We suddenly came to a halt. "Open viewing ports. Let's see what's out there," I commanded. "Yes, sir." Ensign Carthon pushed a button on his console, and a heavy blast door that shielded the window of transparent metal in front of us parted. The sight of a viewing port of some kind appeared directly in front of us. Dark gray metallic hull structure carved into a soft cobalt blue outline surrounding the working compartment of an unidentified being. We were facing a ship, a truly massive ship of unknown origin. It was an awkward moment to say the least when it happened. I was in the middle of waving an order to my engineer, and my hand was in midair. A tall creature with smooth, dark flesh, completely hairless save for a pointy tuft of fuzz between his snout and his upper lip. His eyes a soft brown, and his arms appeared to have muscles upon other muscles. Our eyes suddenly met, with him in mid-drink as he suddenly began to stare at me, his mouth agape and beverage cup in one hand. A moment of awkward silence followed before he slowly lowered a hand towards a button. Then suddenly our ship's malfunctions all ceased. More moments of awkward silence followed as we simply stared at each other. The entire time this was occurring, we simply stared at each other, jaws on the floor, trapped in whatever thing we were doing at the time. It was about this time I realized my arm was getting tired. I squeezed my paws up, splayed my claws open, and gently moved my head side to side in a gentle wave hello. He reciprocated, lifted his free hand up, and likewise waved hello, seeing for the first time the 5 meaty digits on his appendages. I didn't know what to do. Since we could not talk, I exaggerated my movements, communicating through facial gestures and body motion. I unbuckled my belt and stood up. I looked around, squinted my eyes, and went pfft with my jowls and shrugged my shoulders. He responded by likewise standing up, putting his beverage down, and standing straight. It was at this point I noticed he was bipedal and clearly quite tall. Taller than us by a clear foot for sure. He performed a series of gestures I seemed to understand, standing straight with both hands to his side, then raising his right hand up to his temple and smiling. I recognized this as a salute. I responded with a bow, flicking my tail to the side. He mimed out something, and luckily we were similar enough I could basically get the idea. And it was something like, care for a drink, or at least something like that. Might have been, would you like a cup of tea, Squire? Or something. But I got the general idea, smiled with my eyes closed, and mimed a full belly, smacking my lips while nodding my head. He closed one of his hands into a fist with an opposable thumb pointing up, and sat back down at his console and began frantically typing at his control column. A massive mechanical device appeared, a giant robotic arm with a claw at the end. It appeared in front of us, opened and closed a few times, then moved aside, showing the creature controlling it, miming he was about to move us. I hurriedly got back in my seat, buckling my belt up, and he smiled with a thumbs up at me. We felt several large clunks against our hull, then were swiftly whisked away straight down and saw a basic glimpse of just how staggeringly massive this ship was. The manipulation arm carried our tiny ship very quickly as it could, several hundred meters, and deposited us at the entrance to a large hangar bay where another arm clamped on and carried us inside. The hangar bay would have held a ship 3 times as big, with room to spare. We quickly got to work assessing the atmosphere and equalizing pressure. It was slightly heavy for us, the gravity slightly stronger than we were used to. But it was roughly similar to ours, and we could dispense with pressure suits and respirators. After equalizing pressure, we heard a mind-shattering noise. "Donovan James Massoon! Why have you brought an asteroid into my hangar?" A massively booming voice that surprised us broke through the din of the hangar. We could hear it through our ship's hull. What shocked us even more was that it spoke our language, Galactic Standard Eridian. I looked around and saw the same creature controlling the arm was now in the same room as us, looking up at us, unable to stop smiling. A hologram appeared from the ceiling, and a very angry-looking creature just like the Dark One, only paler with more orangey skin and bright red hair atop his head appeared at the screen. "What in the knuckleabies tits are ya up to?" "I don't know. Look closer." The brown creature was seeming a bit smug. The orangey creature looked straight at me. I smiled my best smile and waved my paw in a hello. His facial features switched almost instantly from fury to confusion, then shock. "What the few?" he yelled out and fell away from the monitor, collapsing off his chair. He scrambled out of his office and appeared a few minutes later with 7 other of the same creatures. I pushed a button on my bridge communicator that broadcast to an external speaker. Hello? May we come in? Please?" Everyone looked at each other in shock, momentarily before falling over each other as I lowered our ship's blast doors and left the bridge to enter the airlock. The creatures had moved a device with a set of stairs to help us move down. The sight that greeted us was not just a little bit intimidating. It was, in fact, absolutely terrifying. They were bipedal, mammalian, and judging by their teeth and biological structure, they were at least carnivorous. They stood a full 1.5 feet higher than we did, and I looked one of them, presumably the captain, in the eyes, and my fur fluffed a bit in terror at the sight. 12 of them, each a greater variant than the other, ranging from around 5.5 feet up to 8 feet tall, and each wearing a different garb or uniform, each with its own color scheme and iconography. 5 distinct cultures were present on this one ship. I, however, was confused. I had a question and one for later. One of these creatures, a male wearing a hat with various adornments, stripes and medals on his jacket, and a very proper navy blue uniform, stepped out of the line and looked down at me. He outstretched one of his hands and spoke. "My name is Captain Reginald Smythe, the 7th. We are called humans, and we are a mining vessel from the Terran Federation. Welcome on board the Saucy Sue." He smiled, so much so I thought his face would split open. "My name is Captain Ratakan Ulan, House of the Silver Leonis. We are called Handari, and we are an exploration and research vessel from the Hannes Consortium. It is a pleasure to meet a new face." I smiled my best smile, showing teeth same as him as a sign of respect. His grip was many times stronger than mine, and he nodded apologetically as he noticed me wincing in pain. "A fortuitous event, to say the least of the circumstances. First, we have to follow protocol in these events before we can continue. We don't want any unnecessary accidents. The beer drinking contest can wait for later until we know what we're both dealing with. I shall send you as much data as I am legally allowed on us and biology and whatnot, and you will likewise send yours," he said, retracting his hand politely. Indeed, gods. The things we just did break every conventional first contact protocol in the books. Surprised our heads didn't explode or something. It is nothing short of staggeringly improbable we even speak the same language. This requires some investigation, but that's for another time. We have to follow the rules. Thank you, Captain. I smiled and made a respectful bow. It is so welcome to know we are not completely alone in the universe. We look forward to working with you, and hopefully more, Reginald said, and stepped back into line. "All right, lads, get your gear on and get to medbay for decon. Seal off the hangar and make sure to give our guests plenty of room," he commanded, and everyone cleared out. "Oh, by the way, here, take this," he said and handed me a small box device with a big button on it. "It is a single-use button. Press it and the hangar's force fields will allow you to leave. I will have my engineers take a look at your ship to see if we did any damage to it and make repairs as needed. When all is said and done, if we can, I challenge ye to a drinking contest and a helping of me wife's cottage pie." He let out a healthy chuckle. "I shall hold you to that, Captain. Goddess bless us." I bowed again and hastily returned to my ship. A few hours passed, and we were frantically comparing and sending data through a tight beam communication network they called the intranet that was on board their ship. Their computational calculation speed was something truly staggering, to say the very least. We still had no real concept of their culture and traditions, but had plenty of idea on their biology. It was strangely similar to ours with a few exceptions. We were given some text to compare themselves and ourselves. According to them, we were the equivalent of humanoid lions with manes, fluff, fear responses, and even kittens. We had strange resemblances to their homeworld's cats, and out of curiosity ran some tests and predictably found no similarities beyond superficial appearance. We had a laugh at that. A few more exchanges proved we had a higher nitrogen content to our air compared to theirs. They also had a high gravity of 0 Gs compared to our 78 Gs. Basic exchanges resulted in us coming to various conclusions together very quickly, and I exited my ship first and announced that all was well. Aside from a minor respiratory infection risk, so long as we were careful, we could breathe the same air, drink the same water, consume the same beer, and eat the same food. "All right then, humans," I yelled out from the hangar in front of my ship. "By order of the consortium, I hereby declare a war against you," I announced loudly and proudly, unable to take the smirk off my face. My crew and the human crew looked very much terrified of this sudden revelation. "I bet I can drink any of you lot under the table." I produced a bottle of our brand of whiskey known as Rattan and proudly popped the cap off and took a good strong swig. "Beat that!" A rumble of celebration washed through the ship. What followed was the greatest booze-up and pie-eating contest the galaxy had ever seen, that day. A stroke of luck and a spark of interest had just catapulted us to being the first sentients to ever become friends with humans. Friends with the first-ever FTL-capable tomb worlders.